Welcome to episode 8 of Angels and Demons. Today we're going to talk about 5 popular but false myths about the devil. Myth number 1. The devil isn't real. This seems to be a pretty popular view, even among some Catholics, that the devil doesn't actually exist. You know, he's a myth or a story character that's ultimately made up. He's there to kind of teach us a lesson about evil, but in actuality, he doesn't really exist. What's the truth? The truth is the devil is real, and he's very much alive. He's not just a myth or a story character, although he shows up in myths and stories as well. He's not just symbolic, he actually exists. In reality, the devil was an angel named Lucifer. Lucifer means shining one or light bearer. And he wasn't just any old angel. He was the greatest of all the angels. So probably a seraphim, I would think. He was the most beautiful and most powerful of all of God's creatures. But that beauty and power seems to have gone to his head. Lucifer rebels, saying to God, "I will not serve." And he takes about a third of the angels with him. In the end, Lucifer and his angels get cast down from heaven by St. Michael and the good angels. After that, Lucifer and the angels who got cast down from heaven, they're known as fallen angels, or devils, or demons. But remember, they're still angelic beings, meaning they still have all of the intelligence and the power and the mobility and everything else that we talked about in previous episodes that angels have. It's just now, they're totally evil. And Lucifer, who's still their leader, is called the devil, or Satan, which comes from the Greek satanos, which means accuser. We hear him called this in Revelation 12:10, which says, "The accuser of our brethren has been cast out, who night and day accused them before God." He's called the accuser because his whole goal now is to accuse us before God, accuse us of sinning, of rebelling against God like he did. Basically, he wants us to be thrown down into hell with him. That's his whole goal. That's the whole goal of his entire kingdom of demons. He is not our friend. So, getting back to our myth, yes, he's real. He's the ultimate enemy of humanity. Now for myth number 2. Myth number 2. The devil is the equal opposing force to God. This is a pretty popular view of the devil, but it's dead wrong. Many people see the devil as like the bad version of God. You know, you have two opposing forces, good and evil, and that they're equal to each other. God for the good, the devil for evil. And that they're eternally opposing each other, you know, forever just duking it out. So what's the truth? The devil is not an opposing force that's equal to God. He's a creature. God literally created him. He's not eternal like God. He doesn't exist on his own power like God. In fact, the only reason the devil continues to exist is because God holds him in existence, like he does everything else. Meaning, if God stopped thinking about him, the devil would just be gone. Like that. Now you may be asking, well, why the heck doesn't God do that? That's a question for a whole nother video. But for now, understand the fact that the only reason the devil exists is because God allows him to. So, there's no power struggle between God and the devil. God has all the power. The devil has no power. He's nothing compared to God. Now for myth number 3. Number 3. The devil doesn't actually possess or hurt people.
False!
Again, this is kind of another version of myth number 1. You know, the devil isn't real. This myth says that things like possessions or exorcisms, all that stuff isn't real, it's really made up, or it's just psychological, it's all in their heads or whatever. This is the science proves this isn't real crowd. So what's the truth? The truth is, well, first of all, that just because science doesn't have an explanation for it, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Things exist which science can't explain. And in fact, if spiritual things exist, which of course we say they do, then of course science wouldn't be able to explain them, because science only can explain things that are physical, things that are material. Science is all about knowledge through experimentation. You know, the scientific method. You can only do experiments on physical, material stuff. You can't put a spiritual being under a microscope and examine it. There's nothing to examine. Spiritual beings like angels and demons, well, they're not material, they're pure spirit. All knowledge can't just be reduced to only scientific knowledge. There are things that exist beyond what science can prove. Our second point, as a Catholic priest, I can tell you, exorcisms and possessions do in fact exist. They are real. There are real priests who are real exorcists, and they expel real demons. Though, to be honest, I'm not one of them. I personally am not an expert in this field, though I have met experts in this field. I've met real exorcists and talked with them. This stuff is real. It's not a game, and we definitely don't want to play around with it. However, that leads us to our fourth myth. Myth number 4, the devil has total power over you. This is the opposite extreme from the last one. If people don't hold the last extreme, then they tend to fall into this one. Our last myth said that the devil doesn't actually possess or hurt people. If people don't buy that, then they tend to think that since the devil can possess and hurt people, then we're totally helpless against him. This is how most Hollywood horror movies show the devil. He's this unrelenting, unstoppable force that can't be escaped or resisted. A good example of this is the original movie The Exorcist from the 70s, which, spoiler alert, I'm about to give away the ending. At the end of the movie, for the priest to actually perform the exorcism, he needs to allow the devil to possess himself. The only way he can get the devil to come out of the girl is to allow the devil to possess him. And then once the devil possesses him, the priest throws himself out of the window and commits suicide. I guess to keep the devil from fully possessing him or something. But in short, he thereby frees the girl from the possession by allowing the devil to possess him and then committing suicide. That is a bunch of hogwash, and it is not how the real story actually happened. How it actually happened is that it was a boy who was possessed, not a girl. And even though it took a while, it took a number of sessions. In the end, the exorcism worked. The boy was freed, and the priest didn't have to throw himself out of a window to do it. Shocker. The exorcism worked. Shocker. So the reason I'm being a little sarcastic here is because when you begin to learn the true stories behind some of this stuff that Hollywood makes movies on, you begin to realize that a lot of the drama and fearfulness is actually just made up. I mean, it makes sense because that's the point, that's the genre, to have a scary movie. The truth, though, is that the devil's power is easily broken by Jesus. Easily. And the same goes for witchcraft and voodoo and all of that stuff. The sign of the cross can break that stuff. The name of Jesus can break that stuff. And it's because, remember, evil has no power over God. In fact, if you're baptized because you're made part of Christ's body, then the devil has no power over you. Seriously. The only power the devil has over you is what you give him. And really, this is what he wants. He wants you to be afraid of him because he wants to have an influence in your life. In reality, though, he's got nothing. He's just a bunch of puffing smoke and mirrors. But if you allow him in, he can make a mess. So don't mess with it. But the good news is that no matter what type of mess you might get yourself into, Jesus can free you. There is literally nothing that you can do that Jesus can't free you from. No agreement you can make with the devil that Jesus can't break. People who even sell their soul to the devil, they're still able to be redeemed. So, on to our fifth and final myth. Number 5. The devil may turn good. No. Just no. The devil will never turn good. Remember in episode 2 when we talked about the difference between a human being's will and an angel's will? Or a fallen angel, like the devil? Well, when angels and demons made that choice to be for or against God, they made that choice forever. So, no, there's no little bit of good in the devil. The devil is not Darth Vader. He's not going to turn to the light side. The devil, he's the emperor. There's only one thing you do with the emperor. You yeet him into a pit. Which, come to think of it, is exactly what St. Michael did with the devil. Just yeeted him. Straight into hell. You know, Lucifer thinks he's so big and so bad and so powerful. And Michael just stands up to him and basically says, "Who do you think you are? You're not God." And Michael casts down Lucifer from heaven. In fact, Jesus says in Luke 10:18, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." So there you go. St. Michael casts Satan down from heaven like lightning. Much like the emperor who fell amidst a lot of lightning. There you have it. St. Michael, Darth Vader of heaven. Minus the, killing younglings and force choking people and general evilness. But in terms of general awesomeness, no time for swords, no time for lightsabers, just picking evil up and being like, "You're gone. Toss." St. Michael, Darth Vader of heaven. All right, that wraps it up for episode 8. If you want to hear more about how you, like St. Michael, can start kicking the devil's butt in spiritual combat, hey, can we get that in a deep, gravelly, Mortal Kombat voice? Spiritual combat. Nice. If you want to hear more about that, you're going to love our next episode, episode 9, 5 Warrior Basics for Spiritual Combat. Until then, hit that like button if you learned something new. Subscribe if you'd like to see more. This has been Angels and Demons. Spiritual combat. Spiritual combat.
Okay, this will work.
You better not use these as bloopers.